Hello, YouTube. So I haven't done one of these in a while. Today's therapy day, as you will know if you check out my meta material. I did a live this morning where I explained that Thursdays tend to be quiet days for me, and they tend to be meditative days for me because I do therapy on Thursdays. Well, today's Thursday, I did therapy, and I'm feeling unusually good. Feeling talkative, chatty. My mental health is good. I'm in a really weirdly, well, not weirdly. I mean, you have reason to know that I'm experiencing a lot of success right now for me. So I'm in a really good place. So as you can see, I was watching George Carlin because the Lily Phillips stuff made me think of a George Carlin joke from my youth, and I wanted to watch George Carlin, so I put on George Carlin. And if you're unfamiliar with George Carlin, you're going to watch a little George Carlin with me, because he says some things that you need to hear. And you need to hear them from somebody who's not me. Somebody's funny, and then I can give you commentary on why it's funny if you don't know it's funny. And I realized, as I was listening to him talk, that today I meant to get my Resurrection Magic book back from my therapist, because my therapist has all of my expensive and important books. And now I'm realizing that what I need to get is my Ghosts book, so I can read that for you. The Ghost Magic book that I began to read, or that I read sections to you from in the Jane Roberts readings, either the second or the third one. So anyway, he's going to talk about some religious stuff and some sex stuff, and he's going to be George Carlin, a comedian being very funny. But this isn't, my work is not for children. Now, my work is geared to the assumption that I'm being listened to by teenagers, people 12 years old and older, but it's not for them, because I'm a compulsive swearer. I have an Alzheimer's adjacent syndrome where I can't stop yelling, when I can't stop my voice from raising when I get emotionally excited, and I have a tendency to just reach for the words that come because I get excited, and so there are a lot of profanities. But what you need to understand is that not being sensitive to profanities has actually been demonstrated over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, if you understand what I'm saying, to be a symptom of extreme intelligence. So we're going to listen to George Carlin, and we're going to have a laugh, and I'm going to explain to you why this is funny and how he's actually more right than you realize. And spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the book of Job. So if you haven't listened to the first 3 chapters of Job that I read in my live reading of Job on Sunday, be prepared. I'm going to read more chapters on the coming Sunday. So this is an important book to me, and if I'm important to you, it's going to become important to you. So let's laugh at George Carlin.
You know what the national emblem of this country ought to be? Forget that bald eagle. The national emblem of this country ought to be Uncle Sam standing naked at attention saluting, and seated on a chair next to him, the Statue of Liberty jerking him off.
Yes. Liberty jerking
That
off the
would be a good
military
symbol
is
for the
absolutely
United
right.
Strokes of America. It's all bullshit, folks. It's all bullshit, and it's bad for you. Now,
I've been listening to George Carlin since I was in 6th grade. My dad decided that 6th grade was when I was old enough to be introduced to Andrew Dice Clay and George Carlin, and so I've been listening to stand-up comedy since I was in 6th grade. He introduced me to George Carlin stuff from the 80s. So I think he had the 10 Words You Can't Say tape, and we would listen to that while we worked machines all day on the weekends.
speaking of dead people in heaven, there are some people who not only believe that their dead parents in heaven can see them. Okay.
Just let him talk.
They honestly believe that their dead parents in heaven can help them. You've heard these people, I'm sure.
Is this real?
They honestly somehow believe that their dead parents in heaven can intercede with God on their behalf to gain favors for the living. I come from a Catholic home. I heard this shit.
It's real.
They sit there
People
in the
believe
chair
it.
with the fucking rosary, and they look at you like this, and it's, my dad was looking out for me. He was looking out. I don't know how he got me out of that jam, but he got me out. Oh, my mom
believe
was in
this.
surgery with me. She was in.
They don't give it to God. They give it to an ancestor.
Yeah. Fine. Like the people who die have nothing better to do than to run the heavenly branch of the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
They might not.
Now,
And I'll explain to you why this isn't an irrational system after he lays out the logic for why it is.
I don't want to disabuse anyone of their beliefs, but I have a question about this. A question that involves logic. Let's suppose it's true. Let's allow the proposition that somehow dead parents in heaven can help their living children. Fine. So, we got a family living on earth, father and mother and 4 kids. Family of 6. Good family, nice family.
I'm going to back up real quick because A, I wasn't paying attention, and B, I kind of want to brag on Carlin here for a moment before we get into this. This is a classic philosophical argument.
Allow the proposition that somehow
Let's
dead
allow
parents in heaven can help their living
that this
children.
is possible.
Fine. So, we got a family living on earth, father and mother and 4 kids. Family of
6
6.
people.
Good family, nice family, doing all the right things, having a good time, making all the right moves.
Okay.
And the parents go away on a weekend trip and get killed in an accident, and the children, of course, survive. So now,
Glass House. We've seen that movie, right? This is a common trope in Hollywood movies from the 80s and 90s, especially horror films.
according to
It used to be a common trope in human beings' lives.
this theory, these 2 people go to heaven and they start helping their 4 living children, helping them with everything they need, helping them with their science projects, with their SAT scores, helping them.
Got to remember how old he is. He talks earlier in this piece about how he's 70 years old now. Let's scroll it back to when he was in his 20s. When he was 20, now this was in like 2008, 2010, something like that. So scroll it back from 2010. Let's agree on 2010. Scroll that back 50 years, and you're talking about 1960. He heard this a lot. A lot of kids did this. A lot of kids lost parents before the 1990s. A lot of kids lost parents before the safety regs of the 2000s. You have to understand, life was different in the very recent past. So he's seen some shit. He's important. Our grandparents, I've done this before, but not on YouTube. You've never heard me say this. Our grandparents, people over the age of 50, are extremely important for their perspective. Not for what they know, not for what they remember, but for what they perceive of what they remember. Because everything they remember is wrong. It's subtly wrong. So it's not useful outside of multiple attestation from other people their age or older, maybe an approaching infinite number, in order to build a working model of the past. I started to talk about the other day. That's how oral history is done. I know this because my ex-wife was an oral historian. She got her master's degree in museum sciences is what the degree was called, from I believe that's what it was called, from Western Carolina University, I believe was the name of the university. And I was with her through that. I transcribed all of her interviews. I proofread all of her essays. Maybe not all of her essays, but I proofread a lot of her writing. The point is that she did a series of interviews that I did transcribe. And if you don't know, taking something from hearing it to writing it down is the most perfect way to remember the gist of something, if not specifically something. If you take something that you're trying to memorize and you write it out by hand, that's the most perfect way to remember it specifically. I didn't write it out by hand. I transcribed it into a computer, and so it helped me remember the gist of what they talked about, because that's the most perfect way to make the synapses happen in your brain. Not only are you hearing it a lot over and over and over again, but you're also doing something mechanical with your body while you're learning it, which is why I tell you constantly to engage your hands while you listen to me. Don't so much look at me with your eyeballs. Engage your hands or your feet. Engage your body in a mechanical behavior while you're listening to me, and it will open up pathways in your neuronal network that will allow you to learn at a significantly faster rate than you learn right now not doing that. Trust me. How the fuck do you think I became me? Love you. I don't remember what we were talking about, so we're going to back this up.
These two people go to heaven and they start helping their 4 living children, helping them with everything they need, helping them with their science projects, with their SAT scores, helping them get a good school and get a nice job and get a promotion and a raise and someone to marry, and they all grow up. These 4 kids now grow up and have children of their own. And let's say that all 4 of these now grown children...
We're talking about a multi-generational book of Job, by the way. He's taken Job and he's raised the stakes and the ante, not just in the toll of life and the cost of life that's being taken, but also in time, because it's multi-generational, so it's over the course of a long time, which means that the consequences project forward further in time to be more devastating to the family.
So die at the same time, just for the sake of argument.
Just for the sake of argument.
Let's say there's an explosion at Thanksgiving dinner. And these 4 die, but their children survive.
Because they're at the kids'
they were
table.
seated at the children's table.
Oh, I didn't mean to spoil the joke. I was predicting it.
So now, according to the theory, these 4
this
go
is
to
the
heaven and
logic.
they start helping.
This is the logic system. This is how the Jewish logic system works of the Hebrew texts. So he's dug in. I know that he's an atheist, but for good reasons. And his atheism works. I like his atheism. I modeled it for years and years and years and years. Because he's not trying to have a religious experience, he's trying to be a comedian, and that is a religious experience. That is a religious position. So he can't experience the religion. He can't experience the magic of what's happening to him, because his career is proof that God touches comedians who touch people's lives in a positive way, and Carlin did. That's why he lived for so long. And I think his end was agonizing, but a lot of ends are agonizing. But if his end were as horrible as, I don't know, say Aleister Crowley, then we're talking about someone who's seriously evil and used their evil to prolong their life unnaturally. The end actually does say a lot about the person and the way they lived, especially the number of people that are surrounding them and what people say about them in print immediately after they die. All of that's very real. I no longer remember what Carlin was talking about. What I was telling you, now I do, is that what he's doing is he knows, he's sat and talked religion with a lot of Jewish people, and he really does actually understand the Catholic faith very well. Which, to that guy, Joe Lonsdale, that said that atheists don't actually know the religion, again, dead wrong.
Children. But what happens to the original 2? What happens to the grandparents? Do they
Yeah,
just
do
go
they
off duty
stay
now?
up there?
What do they do? Are there is there a retirement program up there? Are there some activities for these people? Shuffleboard, pinball, online poker? There must be something they can do. Or do they have to remain on duty indefinitely? Do they have to keep on helping their living descendants forever and ever and ever? Is that what heaven's all about, helping the living? When do you get to just lie back on a cloud and take a fucking harp lesson? You know what I mean?
It's a good question.
Because
It's a good question.
People have been dying for a long, long time. There's been a lot of dead motherfuckers.
The early Middle Ages in Europe they really struggled with this. I read you the section of the book where he introduces the idea of how badly they struggled, and I showed you like the book of names and the books of names and things like this. The 10th century really struggled. The 10th through the 13th centuries really struggled with what he's talking about. Do they stay around? Is it multi-generational? When do they get to go to heaven and be done? Purgatory was invented much closer to Dante's day than to Jesus's. Much.
Did you know that? Yes, you knew there's a lot of dead motherfuckers. We've had 100 billion people live on this earth. That's what the experts say. 100 billion people have lived here. So let's say half of them died and went to heaven. That's 50 billion.
It's probably closer to 150 because they don't like to give big numbers to the recent ancient past.
People up there. That's a pretty crowded place. It must get pretty busy and pretty hectic up there. And God must get pretty pissed off with all these favors. Yeah, I know. Spelling test Tuesday. Get the fuck out of here. What you think? Fuck out of here.
Show your daughter how much you love her with this beautiful gift.
It's going to give me an ad.
It says, "To my daughter, never forget that I love you forever. I hope that you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, remember whose daughter..."
I have YouTube Premium. I should have switched back to my YouTube Premium. Yeah, now you know that about me. He just said something really prescient, and then that commercial messed me all the way up.
Pretty pissed off with all these favors. Yeah, I know. Spelling test Tuesday. Get the fuck out of here. What you think? Fuck out of here.
That's why I told you that the more people who say the same prayer with you or for you, the more likely it is to come true. Praying using your own will to get anything done is highly inefficient. That's why will wizards like Aleister Crowley have to enslave other people's wills to their own, and that's why when they die, people say horrible things about them.
You know, even God can go on sensory overload. That's why I wanted one day off a week. Christians gave him Sunday.
You weren't even allowed
Jews
to pray
gave him
on
Saturday.
Saturdays.
Muslims gave him Friday. God has a 3-day weekend.
Sort of.
Which is probably just
He's got
what
a
he
3-day.
needs.
He's got a 3-day third
Now,
day
just a
off.
couple other questions about this whole theory. Suppose you die without having any children. Who do you help?
Right.
Strangers? It would be nice.
Yes.
Suppose
what the lumber
you're
towers
an
were about.
adopted child. Who helps you?
Your adopted
Your
parents.
biological mother?
No.
She doesn't even know where the fuck you live.
Right. There's a functioning system for how this works.
Suppose you kill your parents.
Yes.
Would
a
they
good question.
help you?
This is why comedy needs to still exist and why it's coming back. We need to talk about these things, and it is fine to talk about theology in a comedy club. Do you know why? I already told you the answer. Comedians are a religious position. They have religious authority to blaspheme.
Guarantee you, Mr. and Mrs. Menendez
That's why secularist leftists want to destroy comedians.
are not helping those two boys. No.
No, they're not. Killing your parents was a heinous act of black magic. The reason it's black magic is because you're cutting the cord which binds you to serve them after their lives as well. The worship relationship, I've talked about how churches are bourgeoisie. Well, they're bourgeoisie in large part because the church, the Catholic Church, stepped between the filial relationship between parent and child in order to free up parents' ghosts from having to live in purgatory or on the earth for eternity to guard their children, because the patristic rites and the funerary rites of Rome and the Celts were no longer being maintained. So there actually were pandemics, plagues of ghosts who were also very vengeful. They're recorded. St. Augustine himself records a lot of these stories, and in that book, the ghosts book I'm going to read for you, has a lot of these primary accounts of ghosts walking the earth and stealing people's souls, because the patristic rites, the ghost rites, the afterlife rites weren't practiced properly. So there's a reason that they were practiced in the first place. Keeping people in their graves was a big deal. We worked really hard at that for hundreds of thousands of years to keep them in their graves, and then as soon as we figured out how to do it, it became tradition and we forgot why we were doing it.
Yeah, it's all bullshit, folks. It's bad for you. It's all bullshit.
He's not
You
wrong,
have to remember, as you
but
go
he
through
is
life
wrong.
in this country. It's all bullshit, and it's bad for you. Now, speaking of parents and speaking of bullshit,
He's being ironic, and I'm done here, actually, with listening to him, so we'll put his face there. We're disappointed old man face, but he's being ironic when he says that it's all bullshit, and whatever else he said. He's being ironic, because it is bullshit. Everything that the establishment tells you, everything that the alternative establishment tells you is bullshit. But the firmament above and the space beyond them isn't. We know this because we've traveled space. We have robots and rovers in space now. I saw that this week NASA was able to send the first interstellar communication message between itself and a satellite, some insane distance away, via laser. So our space communications are getting very good. Our ability to send and receive information into very deep space is getting very good. We split the atom, so we can also go small very well. And so that means that it's not all bullshit. You see? Some of it's very real. But the establishment and what they want you to think with it is entirely bullshit. But it's bullshit because if you thought at a higher plane, you'd drop out because there's no incentive in it for you to stay. So on a certain level, don't listen to me. I dare you.